Chapter 13. Voting. 44. Basis for determining a voting result. Majority vote. The basic requirement. As stated in 1.6, the basic requirement for approval of an action or choice by a deliberative assembly, except where a rule provides otherwise, is a majority vote. The word majority means more than half, and when the term majority vote is used without qualification, as in the case of the basic requirement, it means more than half of the votes cast by persons entitled to vote, excluding blanks or abstentions, at a regular or properly called meeting. For example, assuming that there are no voters having fractions of a vote, as may occur in some conventions, if 19 votes are cast, a majority, more than 9.5, is 10. If 20 votes are cast, a majority, more than 10, is 11. If 21 votes are cast, a majority, more than 10.5, is 11. Other bases for determining a voting result, as described below, are required under parliamentary law for certain procedures, or may be prescribed by the rules of the particular body. For decisions in general or for questions of a specified nature, see also 10.8.7. Regardless of the basis required, a decision can be validly made only when a quorum is present, unless otherwise specified in the rules, as in the case of certain procedural actions. See 40. Two-thirds vote. A two-thirds vote, when the term is unqualified, means at least two-thirds of the votes cast by persons entitled to vote, excluding blanks or abstentions, at a regular or properly called meeting. For example, assuming that there are no fractions of votes, if 30 votes are cast, a two-thirds vote is 20. If 31 votes are cast, a two-thirds vote is 21. If 32 votes are cast, a two-thirds vote is 22, and if 33 votes are cast, a two-thirds vote is 22. As a compromise between the rights of the individual and the rights of the assembly, the principle has been established that a two-thirds vote is required to adopt any motion that A. suspends or modifies a rule of order previously adopted, B. prevents the introduction of a question for consideration, C. closes, limits, or extends limits to debate, D. closes nominations at the polls or otherwise limits the freedom of nominating or voting, or E. takes away membership. For a list of motions that require a two-thirds vote, see pages T48 through T49. In determining whether a question has obtained two-thirds of the votes cast, the chair takes a rising vote, or in a very small assembly, if the chair prefers and no one objects, a vote by show of hands, and it is the chair's duty to obtain account of the vote whenever he is in doubt concerning the result. The chair can obtain account of the vote initially if it appears, when those in the affirmative rise, that the result will be close, or he can retake it as a counted rising vote if he is afterward in doubt. In an assembly that has no special rule permitting a small fraction, that is, a specified fraction somewhat less than one-third, of the voters to require a two-thirds vote to be counted, the chair, in judging whether to obtain account of the vote at his own instance, must be particularly careful to leave no room for anyone to doubt the result in cases where he finds that there are two-thirds on the side that thereby prevails. Without account at the chair's instance under these conditions, if he announces that two-thirds vote has been obtained and those on the losing side doubt the result, they are powerless to have it verified should those declared the winners choose to prevent account. The reason is that, whatever may be the true result in view of the closeness of the vote in such a case, those declared the losers are no more than approximately one-third of those voting, and therefore cannot command the majority necessary to order the vote counted. Modifications of usual basis for decision. By modifying the concepts of a majority vote and a two-thirds vote, other bases for determining a voting result can be defined and are sometimes described by rule. Two elements enter into the definition of such basis for decision. 1. The proportion that must concur, as a majority, two-thirds, three-fourths, etc., and 2. The set of members to which the proportion applies, which A, when not stated, is always the number of members present and voting, but B can be specified by rule as the number of members present, the total membership, or some other grouping. Assume, for example, that at a meeting of a society with a total membership of 150 and a quorum of 10, there are 30 members present, of whom 25 participate in a given counted vote, taken by rising, by show of hands, by roll call, or by ballot. Then, with respect to that vote, a majority is 13, a majority of the members present is 16, a majority of the entire membership is 76, a two-thirds vote is 17, a vote of two-thirds of the members present is 20, and a vote of two-thirds of the entire membership is 100. Regarding these bases for determining a voting result, the following points should be noted. A. Voting requirements based on the number of members present, a majority of those present, two-thirds of those present, etc., while possible, are generally undesirable, since an abstention in such cases has the same effect as a negative vote. These bases deny members the right to maintain a neutral position by abstaining. For the same reason, members present who fail to vote through indifference rather than through deliberative neutrality may affect the result negatively. When such a vote is required, however, the chair must count those present immediately after the affirmative vote is taken, before any change can take place in attendance. The negative vote is not taken, since it is intrinsically irrelevant to determining whether the motion is adopted. See 435. B. A majority of the entire membership, Note, in the case of a body having a fixed membership, for example, a permanent board, it is also possible to define a voting requirement as a majority of the fixed membership, which is greater than a majority of the entire membership if there are vacancies on the board. Thus, in a board whose membership is fixed at 12, if 2 members have died and their successors have not yet been named, a majority of the entire membership is 6, and a majority of the fixed membership is 7. When a majority of the fixed membership is required for a decision, the body cannot act if half or more of the membership positions are vacant. Back to reading. Is a majority of the total number of those who are members of the voting body at the time of the vote. Thus, in a society that has both a general membership and an executive board, a majority of the entire membership at a board meeting refers to a majority of the membership of the board, not of the society. In a convention of delegates, a majority of the entire membership means a majority of the total number of convention members entitled to vote as set forth in the official roll of voting members of the convention, 116, 59, 25 through 26. The vote of a majority of the entire membership is frequently an alternative to a requirement of previous notice and is required in order to rescind and expunge from the minutes. See 3513. Otherwise, prescribing such a requirement is generally unsatisfactory in an assembly of an ordinary society, since it is likely to be impossible to get a majority of the entire membership even to attend a given meeting, although in certain instances it may be appropriate in conventions or in permanent boards where the members are obliged to attend the meetings. Whenever it is desired that the basis for decision be other than a majority vote, or where the normal rules of parliamentary law require it, a two-thirds vote or a vote of majority of the entire membership, the desired basis should be precisely defined in the bylaws or in a special rule of order. Whatever voting basis is used, it is also possible to include a requirement of previous notice for specified types of action. Previous notice means that notice of intent to introduce the proposal must be given at the preceding meeting, in which case the notice can be oral, or on the call of the meeting at which it is brought up. For a discussion of previous notice, see 1044 through 51. Plurality vote. A plurality vote is the largest number of votes to be given any candidate or proposition when 3 or more choices are possible. The candidate or proposition receiving the largest number of votes has a plurality. A plurality that is not a majority never chooses a proposition or elects anyone to office except by virtue of a special rule previously adopted. If such a rule is to apply to the election of officers, it must be prescribed in the bylaws. A rule that a plurality shall elect is unlikely to be in the best and interests of the average organization. If an international or national society where the election is conducted by mail ballot, a plurality is sometimes allowed to elect officers, with a view to avoiding the delay and extra expense that would result from additional balloting under these conditions. A better method in such cases for the bylaws is for the bylaws to prescribe some form of preferential voting. See 45, 62 through 69. The votes, in cases in which the chair's vote affects the result. If the presiding officer is a member of the assembly, he can vote as any other member when the vote is by ballot. See also 4528. In all other cases, the presiding officer, if a member of the assembly, can, but is not obliged to, vote whenever his vote will affect the result. That is, he can vote either to break or to cause a tie. Or, in a case where a two-thirds vote is required, he can vote either to cause or to block the attainment of the necessary two-thirds. In particular, on a tie vote, a motion requiring a majority vote for adoption is lost, since the tie is not a majority. Thus, if there is a tie without the chair's vote, the presiding officer can, if he is a member, vote in the affirmative, thereby causing the motion to be adopted. Or, if there is one more in the affirmative than in the negative without the chair's vote, for example, if there are 72 votes in favor and 71 opposed, he can vote in the negative to create a tie, thus causing the motion to be rejected. Similarly, in the case of a motion requiring a two-thirds vote, if, without the chair's vote, the number in the affirmative is 1 less than twice the number in the negative, for example, if there are 59 in the affirmative and 30 in the negative, the chair, if a member, can vote in the affirmative and thus cause the motion to be adopted. Or if there are exactly two-thirds in the affirmative without his vote, for example, if there are 60 in the affirmative and 30 in the negative, the chair can vote in the negative, with the result that the motion is rejected. Note: it should be noted that if, without the chair's vote, the number of negative votes is 1 more than half of the number of affirmative votes, the chair's vote cannot affect the result. Thus, if there are 60 in the affirmative and 31 in the negative without the chair's vote, and he were to vote in the affirmative, the resulting 61 in the affirmative would still fall short of two-thirds of the total vote with 92. Back to reading. Similarly, the chair's vote might affect the result in cases where a majority of the members can decide a question. The chair cannot vote twice, once as a member, then again in his capacity as presiding officer. If an appeal from the decision of the chair, a tie vote sustains the chair's decision, even though his vote created the tie, on the principle that the decision of the chair can be reversed only by majority.